240 million people are voting in this year's election, but the US president is not chosen directly by the voters. It's not a popular vote, instead they're chosen by the Electoral College. You see, each American state has a fixed number of electoral votes that's according to the state's population. Whoever wins the state wins all the electoral votes. The Electoral College has a total of 538 votes. A candidate needs 270 or more to win, so it's a complicated system and one that's gotten some pushback in the recent years. We'll tell you why.
In the 5th of November, millions of voters in the United States will cast their ballot to elect their next president. However, there's a catch: the world's oldest democracy does not hold elections, which can be considered as the easiest to understand. In fact, the American voting system is quite complicated. Now, most democracies in the world follow something that's called the popular vote, where voters directly cast their ballots to a political party or leader. It's a direct transfer of the vote from the voter to whoever is on the ballot, but the United States does not follow this. In fact, it's the only democracy in the world that has an indirect voting system called the Electoral College. Simply put, the Electoral College is a process of voting. It's not really a college. It was established in 1787 and was included in the U.S. Constitution by the Founding Fathers. The Electoral College is basically the selection of electors who are called delegates on the 5th of November, when Americans will queue up to vote. They won't actually be voting for their next president. Instead, they'll actually be voting for delegates who represent their respective states, and these delegates will then vote for the president. So how does the Electoral College work? The Electoral College is made up of 538 delegates. You must be wondering where the number 538 comes from. It's the number of senators and representatives from each of the 50 states. The branch down of 538 includes exactly 100 senators, 2 from each state, and 438 representatives from the 50 states. Each state's number of representatives is based on its population. Let's take a closer look with an example. California and Texas are the two most populous states, and so they have a higher number of representatives. However, regardless of the population of the states, each of them gets 3 votes to start with. The remaining are then added depending on the population of the state. However, that does not mean that the states with a higher population enjoy more voting rights. In fact, it can be quite the opposite. Let's take the example of 2 states. The population of Texas is over 29 million. On the other hand, Alaska has a much smaller population of just above 700,000. However, each representative from Texas and Alaska roughly represents the same proportion of the population. So as Texas gets 38 representatives in the U.S. Congress, Alaska gets 3, and this makes voting different in Texas and Alaska because each of the 38 delegates from Texas now represent roughly over 760,000 people. Meanwhile, each delegate from Alaska represents over 250,000 people. Basically, it takes 760,000 people from Texas to get 1 vote, but it just takes 250,000 people from Alaska to get that same 1 vote. So the vote in Alaska can be considered a lot more influential. When Americans go to polls in November, they aren't exactly voting for the president directly, but states representatives, whether that's Democrat or Republican, and then these delegates give their votes to the presidential candidate from their party. Whichever candidate then wins the majority in a state, no matter how big or small it may be, wins all the electoral votes off that state. And in total, to win the race to the Oval Office, a candidate must win 270 and more votes across 50 states. So when Americans say this,
I love her. I am so glad to see a presidential nominee who is youthful and joyful, and I think that reflects right back onto the Democrats. My first time voting in a presidential election, and I could not be happier.
I don't know the exact numbers, but I know the last election I think Trump got, like 88 or 90% of the vote here. I think he's going to get that again. Thanks for watching this video.